Hello and welcome to another episode of the GC Sunscast. It is the 27th of November and it is the AFLDraft 2019 live. I am here with Tom Roker and the special guest Tom Boswell. Welcome to the show, fellas.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, g'day Shane, how you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Now, we're going to get stuck straight into the action. It's just about 6 o'clock and the AFL are going to start reading names. So, before we start, who do you guys think is going to be, well, we all reckon Rowell and Anderson will be picks 1 and 2. Do you think any chance that deviates?
No, I can't see it. There's been too much hype and too much leaked about them. I can't see them changing tack now, but it'd be exciting and it'd probably throw everyone else out of the whack if they did it.
Yeah, it would. I can't see who they'd do it for, though. Could you, Tom Roker?
No, I think the leaks is the key thing here. Not only has there been too much leaked about which recruiter's going where, but it's also been leaked pretty strongly that part of the Gold Coast submission for assistance was that we've got this unique opportunity to get these two best mates at the top of the draft. So you're not going to go to the AFL asking specifically for that and then not follow through.
No, you won't. Well, before we get on to the draft, why don't we just have a quick, a bit of a background. Everyone listening would know who myself and Tom Roker is. But for those not listening, Tom Boswell, what's your role? You work for the Gold Coast Bulletin, don't you?
Yes, I do. So I'm part of the sports team there, looking after mostly Aussie rules and horse racing. So Aussie rules encompasses anything from grassroots footy up to quaffle and lethal and, of course, the Sunnies in the AFL. Yeah,
your articles stand out a lot as a Sun supporter. Most of your articles come across as very positive sort of vibes. You look at some of the other reporters, Michael Whiting and Andrew Hamilton, they come across slightly more negative and cop a lot of criticism from Suns fans. What do you attribute to your view being a bit more positive?
I think being placed on the Gold Coast in particular and being in the actual market, I think we have more of a duty to actually champion the game here. So not just the Suns, but every level of footy. So we're about championing the game. Obviously, we have to keep them and take them to task where necessary. And there's been many times in the past where they've also fallen down, and a lot of the fans would have felt the same. But when you've got AFL.com media like Michael and also Hemo from the Career, they're obviously looking after a nationwide stuff. So the audience is different. They don't have to necessarily just champion the game constantly, but I think they're pretty balanced. I think every time there's something to be said positive about the Suns, both of them do it. So I couldn't knock them in that sense.
Okay. Just as you're talking there, the Suns are now on the clock for pick 1. I wonder how long it's going to take them to make that selection. Hopefully not too long. But as you were saying,
they generally go the 5 minutes. So in the top of the, they like to get the crowd going, get the audience going. So they're going to wait no matter what. Interesting observation. They've got Tom Green, Brad Johnson's top 10. He's got Tom Green as his number 1, Noah Anderson number 2, Matt Rowell number 3. So my prediction that the Gold Coast are putting a massive trade up to number 3 together to try and get the Demons pick and then bid for Tom Green could be underway. It could be what's holding us up, guys.
Well, that could be interesting. As you were saying, Tom Boswell, you cater for the Gold Coast demographic. Does the club sort of understand that? Do they give you guys, preferred access or anything like that to help you with that job of promoting the sport on the coast?
Yeah, it's interesting because the Suns, because of the market they're in, a big part of their bid to get the licence was to grow the game in Queensland. So they almost have a duty in themselves to be able to provide access wherever possible. Obviously, it's not going to be 100% of the time, depending on circumstances and player positions, but wherever necessary, they do their utmost to make players available, make staff available for interviews. Of course, you're going to butt heads when you're competing organisations every now and then, but for the most part, they've got a pretty key role in getting exposure out there, because as we know in Queensland, it's pretty hard. It's obviously a rugby league dominated market media-wise. It seems to be changing in terms of participation numbers at ground level for both sports. Rugby league's obviously dominant, gets a massive readership across papers and radio and TV. So the Suns have a lot of work to do in advertising, growing the game, but to be able to get as much exposure, they need to be able to provide good content, good stories that are not only colour stories, but hard news as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So my follow-up to that would be, do the Suns... I don't know how to word it. Tom, do you have anything to jump in here while I gather my thoughts?
Well, we're still letting the 5 minutes run down on the clock. So certainly, Tom Boswell, I've got to say I'm a big fan of your articles. You've come through at really key times in the year where the general news, and especially the Vic media bubble, where they don't seem to have anything good to say about the Suns ever, especially on this very long losing streak. And your articles seem to come in with some timing to suggest that perhaps maybe you're even a bit of a fan.
Oh, yeah, I think reporting on them, the only way I'm going to be able to get to an AFL Grand Final is if the Suns do. So it's in my best interest if the Suns get there. So to be able to report on games like that in finals, and for fans to be able to go to those types of games, we want to see them do well. I'd say I'm a fan of Queensland footy. I grew up in Brisbane. Was a big Lions supporter as a kid. Spent the last 5 to 6 years on the Gold Coast. So since coming down here and working closely with the players, similar to fan engagement, you get to know some of these blokes on a pretty good level, and you can't fault their personalities and their characters. So you just want to see them do well, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's our motivation as well. As Shane and I both obviously followed other teams before the Suns came into existence. So it's a pretty common thing. If the Suns aren't your first team, then they're your second team because of where you live. I guess the other thing I'd ask you is personally, you know, of the sort of events that you've been covering this year, obviously there's the sort of, you know, there's the Debbie Downers every week when you're reporting on losses, but what's been the most positive sort of news story that you found this year?
Mine are a bit out of the box, because mine aren't necessarily the top line players that we all know about. I love finding yarns about guys who are little known or have incredible stories to tell. I think one of my favourite when I think of the Suns straight away, and I think it might have been early this year, was of course the young Papua New Guinea boy, Ace they call him, Hulago Olea. Great academy kid. I've seen him play a fair bit of footy, and when he arrived, he came from Port Moresby, where he was sleeping on a hard timber deck from a 2-bedroom house with many brothers and sisters, and found his way over to Queensland. And when he arrived here, he stayed with one of the Suns staff members, and he wasn't sure what the sheets were on the bed. The staff member came in and he'd found all the sheets on the floor because he didn't actually know how to get into the bed. He didn't speak a lot of English fluently. Now he's one of the best academy players and coming through for the 2020 series. So it's that they're the kind of stories that I kind of get the most joy out of. But yeah, of course, week to week, working with the players, seeing some of the emerging guys do really well. The Jack Bozes, who obviously came through the Queensland systems, Danny Ainsworth trying his hand in the midfield. So a lot of those kinds of stories I've found I've enjoyed the most.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we obviously like to follow those kinds of things. I've watched a lot of Ace playing this year, and it was almost a bonus that he's not eligible for this draft, because when he does become eligible, we now get him for nothing. But we don't have to give up a place this year, and he'll still be playing NEFL, which he probably needs. So yeah, I totally agree. I've read a couple of your stories about Connor Bednarik. I think he just comes up again and again. He just wins everything, every MVP or award or medal there is, and now he's on the Suns list. But what do you think about that? And I guess What do you think about the idea that he's on the rookie list instead of being sort of put on the senior list? Is that maybe even a better thing?
Oh, it can only be seen as beneficial for the Suns because it obviously frees up spots on the senior list for them. So you're getting a really quality player who's picked to go around the first or second round pretty cheaply. I'm not 100% sure of rookie wages as it stands at the moment, but you'd think that he doesn't seem to have a big ego, so rookie or senior wouldn't really faze him as long as he's playing some AFL footy. I think he'll love it. Watching him really closely over the first few weeks, it's a massive advantage to be able to get these kids, especially in Queensland when they've already finished school, into an AFL preseason. I mean, he's had 3 or 4 weeks already on the running track, and he physically, obviously, he's not as built as some of the other guys yet, but running-wise, he's been in the top 3 or 4 every time I see them between drills doing 400-metre repeat. He's doing really well up there with the best of them, so his endurance, his ability to repeat efforts is what stands out early, and he's a tough little bugger.
Do you think he might end up being a defender?
Could be. He played a fair bit of halfback in the under-18 system this year. It's going through the Allies and also a bit for the Suns Academy when they're in the TAC Cup. So it's definitely an element that he could add to his game. I think long-term he wants to be a midfielder like most players do, so I think he might even have to start off halfback, play a Lockie Weller type role, bouncing off, but his ball use is good, his decision-making is really good. He's obviously got that endurance I spoke about. So, I think he'd be a player who plays more so halfback midfield rather than midfield forward.
Yeah, I might throw over to Shane here because there seems to be some action going on at the draft.
What stream are you watching? I'm watching the AFL site and there's still nothing going on.
Are you watching Kate Luffman do her introduction?
No, this is Cal Toomey, our good friend, on AFL.com.au.
We're watching different things. I'm watching the live stream directly, and the Master of Ceremonies is just introducing the draft and everything. But the Suns are on the clock, and when their pick does come down, but they did show the Giants room. So what are you observing?
At the moment, I can't lip read, but it's Cal Toomey and Nat Edwards and Riley Beveridge all having a chat. We saw a nice little promo of Matt Rao. He really looks like a star player, doesn't he?
Yeah, he reminds me of Michael Voss.
Well, there was a Fox Sports article which came out the other day saying that he plays a bit like Lachie Neale, and we all know how well Brisbane have done this year with Lachie Neale. Do you have much to do with Brisbane, Tom Boswell?
No, not a lot, no. We work mostly with the Sunnies down here, so we don't get up the M1 too much. Obviously, we know some of the Sunnies boys who have gone up there, but I couldn't say I know a great deal about the Lions list at the moment. Yeah.
It must be a pretty hectic schedule for you on game day. I tried to catch up with you at one point earlier this year, and it sounds like you've just got a full-on day when the Suns are playing.
Yeah, especially with the new online element. I mean, back in the day, a journalist could probably rock up to one footy game and go and file it and send it off to the boss and go home, whereas now I'll probably start the day out at the racetrack, which I never complain about, as long as I have a good punt, and then we'll go out and do some local footy with a Boffle or Neefle, run race across, see some of the Sunnies Neefle if they're doing a curtain raiser, do some interviews, and then try and punch out those stories before tip-off, usually just as they're doing the first bounce. I'm finishing a story or close to, and then throughout the game, obviously it's pretty hectic, and then we're pretty much filing on the siren for online, and then we're straight down into the rooms to catch up with players and staff and coaches.
Okay. So, yeah, it sounds very full-on. The life of a journalist, eh?
Yeah, you like this one. You obviously know the CRA admin facility they've built out there. I think a few times, a couple of the journos have nearly got locked out. We parked our cars across the road in the big car park, and a few times the boom gate come down and it's been locked up, and we've had a bit of trouble from the security trying to actually leave the venue. So I think they just want to keep us there.
All right. Well, I know you've got to head off soon, and we haven't even had the first pick yet. What's your predictions or your hopes for the Suns in the draft tonight?
I think the key for them is midfield talent still. Obviously, we know the first two that are going, but the likes of Tom Green, if they could get in, even Devin Robertson, another good midfielder with some good height and weight from over in Perth. Cooper Stevens, obviously a midfielder as well. I think they need just to keep adding depth there. They've got tall, young talents. They picked up Lukosius and the likes of King last year. If they can get midfielders who can play either half-back or half-forward as well, develop them while the other guys are gaining more experience with the likes of Fiorini and such. So that's just the key for them, really. If they can trade up, great. I think they're pretty lucky in the sense that they're actually going to have the first pick of the second day. So they're in a really good place. I don't think they'll want to trade them for multiple picks because they haven't got that many spots on their list. So get the best talent they can in terms of the midfield and develop them. So I think they're in a really good spot.
Oh, okay. Well, a similar thing to what you said with the midfield talent, we've had a question come in from Paul Vosti, one of our Patreon sponsors. He asks, would you trade 15, a future second, and future pick 11 for pick 6? He's basically asking if we can get up the draft order to secure another talented midfielder like a Hayden Young or a Caleb Sarong. Would you guys be interested in doing something like that?
Yeah, I'd definitely be open to that, considering the assistance they've got for the next 2 years as well. So I think the top 10 has got some really good quality in it. So if they can shift up, I probably wouldn't hesitate if I was them. And if it's a second round or 11th, then I'd go for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely of the same opinion. I think bank our future stuff, try and get it into this year and get some years into and to develop some of these young stars. All right, well, we're going to let you go, Tom, and all the best. Hopefully, we can have you on the show in future.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys. And yeah, I'd love to hear the fans' reaction to the picks tonight. We could even run a bit of a story off it. So get some good goss for me, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Tom.
See you guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye. Okay. Back to the normal show, Tom? That was a bit confusing, all the Toms. I was getting tongue-tied.
Matt Rowell, pick 1.
Has it gone through, has it?
It's gone through, confirmed. He's hugging his girlfriend, he's hugging his mum. Everyone's pretty happy, so zero surprise there, and they only used 1 minute, so obviously the Suns had that pick locked in, and it was just the sense of drama from the AFL department. And Jack Lukosius and Isaac Rankin have come out to present him with his jersey. What a nice touch.
That's interesting.
Well,
what stream are you watching?
I am watching.
Are you on KO, are you?
Fox Footy.
Fox, okay. Yeah, yep. I don't have Fox at the moment.
Are you slightly behind?
Slightly. They're just showing a highlights package of Matt Rowell now on the AFL website.
They're probably doing something similar to what you and I are doing, commentating on the thing without actually watching all the boring bits.
Yeah, probably. But you would think they'd have live crossovers to. I mean, it's everyone's favourite part of draft night, isn't it? Listening to the CEO, Gil McLaughlin, try and pronounce some of these players' names.
Yeah,
so I was looking forward to that, but that's not going to happen.
Father of the Suns, Gil McLaughlin, so we kind of have to be nice to him, but he's a bit boring.
All right, so what do we know about Matt Rowell? He's officially a Suns player. Let's see, he plays a lot like Lachie Neale. He's 180 centimetres tall and 78 kilos. He's an inside midfielder, so it's a talent. It's a position the Suns sorely lack.
It is. And, he's 18 years of age. He regularly collects 30-plus possessions, so he's a ball accumulator, and we occasionally get accumulators in there, but, it's you can't just have one guy getting the ball all the time or you get flogged. So that's what happened when we had Gary Ablett. I'm not comparing Rowell to Ablett. I think they're different players in that regard. But one thing that Cal Toomey said that really stuck with me is that Cal's seen Matt Rowell play, 20 times in the last 12 months, and he's never seen Matt Rowell fumble the ball. So it's that clean possession that he gets, and that just gives him that time. If you've got, half a second more, then you're going to retain possession. He's just cool. He doesn't have the best disposal, but that can be worked on. He's only going to get better at it. No, he's just going to be a superstar for us. We haven't had a number one since David Swallow.
Yeah, that's right. And David Swallow is one of the club's greatest, and would probably be the club's first, legend, really, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, as we know, David Swallow spent quite a bit of time out injured, and his injuries were quite severe, so we really didn't see the best of him until I think maybe this year he showed his best. The general consensus is that he's perhaps never going to ever get to his best, but I'd like to think that in a dominant midfield, David Swallow's experience, and he knows where to be. I mean, that comes in the older you get, and if you lose a little bit of pace or this or that. So, yeah, Matt Rowell's going to improve David Swallow, and Matt Rowell's going to improve Braden Fiorini. And as these younger guys like Jack Bowes and Ben Ainsworth get better, they're all going to be improved by having Matt Rowell there, who's just a genuine, he could be the next Chris Judd, he could be the next Michael Voss.
So you're watching the Fox Sports stream. Are you able to see who's presenting the jumper to Matt Rowell?
Yeah. And Gillon McLaughlin's just announced Noah Anderson as pick 2. He's kissing his girlfriend and hugging the family. And he's got an awful haircut.
I've been told reliably the players presenting the jumper are 2 of our younger leaders at the club. It was Lukosius and Rankin who presented it, and now it is Ben King presenting the jumper to Noah Anderson. So nice touch there. Obviously the first rounders from last year. So and I'll tell you what, there's a lot more smiles this year than there was last year. Jared Harbrow's a bit of a tacky turn bloke. He doesn't really, he's not one for big grins or anything like that. And he's pretty serious about his duty. But yeah, these guys are genuinely celebrating they're finally being picked in 1 and 2, like everyone's been saying since basically March. Yeah, I love that. I love the players of last year's draft presenting the jumpers to the players of this year's draft for the club. It's because when you look at it, these kids coming through, they're going to be able to relate most to the blokes that were drafted last year. They know the feeling of being drafted more recently. They understand the feeling of walking into the club for the first time, and these players are really going to take Lukosius, King, Rankin. They're going to be able to take Rowell and Anderson under their wings and guide them through the club and just help them fit into the club as quickly as possible.
Yep. Yeah. So the draft comparison for Noah Anderson, for those who aren't really sure about what we're getting here, he's a bit taller, and he's been compared to Stephen Cornelio.
Hang on a sec, Tom.
Sorry,
We've got Matt Rowell in an interview here on the stream. I might just try and put that onto the show.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just an unbelievable feeling and something I'll always remember.
A big embrace with the family there. How much does it mean, not only for yourself, but your family and all the work they've put in?
Yeah, it's massive for my family. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done and got to this stage without my family. So they've been massive support of me and my footy, but not just footy, also being the best person I can be and, showing me the values and everything. So they've been massive for me, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
It would have been hard to escape all the talk during the last 6 months about you going number 1. Did you have an inkling, and how did you deal with the talk about you going number 1 pick?
There's been a bit throughout the season, but it was easy to not get caught up in it throughout the season because I was playing footy and I was just focusing on playing footy and playing the best of my ability. So it has got quite a bit of attention after the season, but I've just spent that time with family and haven't thought about it too much.
To see Noah Anderson go through, how exciting is that? You'll be joining your close friend, your schoolmate, your teammate up at the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, that's just awesome. He's my best mate, and to share this journey with him and to play footy up there with him will be awesome. So yeah, it's great.
All right, thanks a lot for your time and enjoy the rest of the night.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Back to you, Nat.
All right, so that was Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson. Mitch Cleary interviewing Matt Rowell. And, Rowell, he's a ginger, isn't he? He's going to get some of it quite easy.
His face goes so red, but that's why I say he reminds me of Michael Voss, because Vossi looked exactly like that. At some point, they got the peroxide out at the Lions, and half the Rangers changed their hair colour. But I don't mind it. He can look red in the face all he likes. He's a gun. It was a bit weird. I was watching Noah Anderson being interviewed on mute while I was listening to Matty Rowell speak. He's pretty well spoken. He doesn't seem like he's full of himself or anything. He just seems like nothing really phases him. He's just he just wants to be a footy player. It's just so good that he's going to be a Sun.
Well, Melbourne's just selected Luke Jackson with their pick, so he was the ruckman that was compared to a Brodie Grundy type, and we know the Suns were keen on him, but in the last couple of weeks
he's very good.
Yeah, in the last couple of weeks he just went from being a mid to late first round draft pick and just went up the order as clubs sort of realised his potential, and I think a lot of them probably got suckered into the thought of getting a Brodie Grundy. The last few years, the Brodie Grundy, Max Gawn type of ruckman has just sort of taken the football scene by storm. So I think people might be jumping, because traditionally, sorry, Tom. Traditionally, clubs don't take ruckman in the first round. It usually backfires. I mean, Nat Nui was the last ruckman I think that went first round. Before Grundy. Grundy was like 18 or something.
I'm looking at a list of those here. Billy Longer, Daniel Gorringe, Callum Coleman-Jones. So none of them really succeeded. Tim English at the Bulldogs is probably still a year or two away from really becoming a dominant ruckman, but he slid right out to the end of the first round. And if you remember...
I'll cut you off again there, Tom. We've got Noah Anderson now.
Feeling I've never had before. I'm so excited.
What does it mean to you? Because all this talk throughout the year, yourself and Matty Rowell have been inseparable through all the talk, but not only in the classroom and on the footy field. How exciting is it to be going up there with your best mate?
I can't describe it. For probably the whole year, we didn't think it was going to happen. It never even popped into our heads, and then the priority pick news started gathering up a bit, and we were getting a little bit excited. But to go up there with Rowell is just a massive benefit, and we'll have so much fun. You just had a quick chat off camera to Isaac Rankin, Jack Lukosius, Ben King. It's not a bad little crew you're putting together up there. No, it's not at all. They're amazing players, so I can't wait to see what we can do.
Talk us through the year. How many chats did you have with the Suns, and have you toured? Have you met Stewie Dew? Talk us through what's entailed and the relationship you've built already with the club.
Yeah. So just during the academy, they have little 8-minute interviews. So then we had home visits, which my parents went there for. So one of the only ones with that, and then they were awesome there and made a really good impression. And then just throughout the year, little chats here and there, and met Stewie Dew at the Combine, which was awesome, and he was really friendly. So yeah.
Did you kick the old man out? What happened with the parents not at the home visit?
No, they were just out.
Right.
Yeah, no story there.
And the last one we want to know, the biggest, most important one, are you keeping the mullet next year for your debut season?
No promises, but most likely.
All right. Noah Anderson, awesome. Thanks a lot and enjoy the rest of the night.
Thanks very much.
Back to you, Nat.
So that was Mitch Cleary again, this time with Noah Anderson. He's a well-spoken young boy, isn't he?
He is, and he's genuinely excited to come to the Suns. I think these young guys have realised last year, the three of them, you know, we know now that all three of those guys were told, if you're there at that pick, that's where we're going to take you. You'll be coming to the Suns, so get used to it. But, you know, it's not necessarily bad news. And they've all come with the right attitude. They all came to live with Mark Evans. Isaac Rankin moved in with his mate Sean Lemons, and now Kingy and Lukosius have got their own place together. They are welcoming in the new guys, and the new guys have now kind of got that benefit of knowing that, you know, there's a core of really high quality early draft picks, top 10 draft picks. We skipped 1 year where we didn't have so many high picks, but that's 3 out of 4 drafts where we've just killed it and been the best club. Lockie Ash has just been chosen by GWS, and I'm jealous. He's a terrific player. Yeah,
from all reports, he's going to be a very speedy player. Look, do you think the Suns need to trade up to try and get one of these star players, or are we just going to hope that someone like a Brody Kemp or a Cooper Stevens just sort of drops down to pick 15?
Let's look at it this way. The one way to go is to keep all the picks that we've got. We get pick 15, and then we get the first pick of the second round, which is actually pretty good because it gives the whole recruitment team a chance to really be sure about which player they really want, because they may not have known who would be on the board. It's an unknowable. And then next year we'll have 2 first round picks, both likely, in the first, possibly one top 10, and then we know we're going to pick 11. And then we've got 2 second round picks. We know one of them is going to be fairly early in the second round because the Suns aren't going to win the premiership next year, and the other pick is tied to Brisbane. So we could be looking at 4 picks in the top 30 next year, which in any other year for any other club, that'd be an amazing draft to have. So that's one way of looking at it.
I really liked, yeah, and I really liked Paul Vosti, one of our Patreon sponsors. I really liked his suggestion of shifting some of our currency for next year, that pick 11, a future second, to try to get further up, get 15 or 20 pushed up the ladder this year to get an earlier pick.
I think that there's 100 different ways to combine those picks, and offering them in as the draft goes on and we keep getting rebuffed, it just gets cheaper to move up. To move up to number 5 right now, we could have an offer in front of the... I'd be surprised if we didn't have an offer in front of the Swans to say, look, we'll give you 15, we'll give you certainty in next year's draft of pick 11, right? Because that's fixed.
Which they could use to trade for Danaher.
It'll be more like 13 or 14 by the time it gets there. But that you know that when you're trading up, you're giving them certainty about what they're getting. I just think it's too good an opportunity to be able to do it. The irony is that probably Carlton are probably the most likely club to shift out of 9, and I don't see us doing any deals with Carlton anytime soon.
Yeah. While we're waiting for Sydney's pick to come through, I might do a quick ad read. We'd like to thank all of our Patreon sponsors, such as Paul Vosti, who we answered a question for before, Tom Kim, Chris Moore, Dale Snelling, James Wood, Kate Kelland, Brody Burgess, and Tim. We thank you all for your Patreon support. If you'd like to be a Patreon sponsor, head over to patreon.com/GC Sunscast or find the link on our Facebook page. It doesn't matter how much you donate, whether it's $1 or $5. Most of our subscriptions are around that $5, and that gets deducted at the start of every month. The funds come over to us at the GC Sunscast, and we use that to basically support the Suns. A bit of it goes into hosting and tech costs, but any extra that we get, we chuck into a membership to give back to the Suns, and also allow us to get down to as many Suns games as possible and support them. So helping us supports the Suns. We'd really love your sponsorship and your support. If you can't afford it, don't worry. Liking, subscribing to our Facebook, our YouTube, Twitter. Am I missing something, Tom? I feel like I'm missing something.
Well, the next pick's about to come in.
Oh, we don't have Instagram. That's what I'm thinking of.
Not yet. Everyone tells us to get Instagram, but we're a podcast.
I don't really know what we're supposed to take pictures of. I can only take pictures of the same mixer and computer setup so many times. But
we've got a shock here, Shane. Dylan Stevens has been picked by the Sydney Swans at number 5. That's much higher than anyone else had him. So they obviously know what kind of player that they want. I've got to confess, I haven't got him anywhere near this high on my draft board. I haven't even got him top 10. What do you know about him?
Not much, because I keep getting confused with Dylan Stevens and Cooper Stevens, I think it is.
Yeah. I think Dylan Stevens is the first rounder and Cooper Stevens might be a second rounder.
Yeah, I think Cooper Stevens, is he the South Australian?
I think they both are, but I think Dylan Stevens comes from Mildura.
Yeah, that's
and he played for SA. So, he doesn't really consider himself a South Australian, put it that way, but if he had to choose who to play for, he's probably closer to New South Wales. So that could explain the Sydney connection. Doesn't have, that connection to Melbourne or Adelaide that the geography might suggest that he has. So, good pick by them.
Yeah, well, they were tipped to pick Sam Flanders, but this could actually be good. Another player jumping up the ladder. Look, Dylan Stevens was picked to go to Carlton at pick number 9, so it's not a huge jump. I think you're still thinking of Cooper Stevens is the one that was going to be a second round pick or a late first. So not a huge jump, but definitely a surprise packet there. He's a midfielder from Norwood, Dylan Stevens.
Yeah, I think he's played a bit of I don't know, but I think he's played a bit of first senior footy, which it's got to be said. A lot of these guys don't play senior footy unless they're from West Australia or South Australia or of course up here in the NEFL. If they're from Victoria, which let's face it, the majority are. So Matty Rowell and Noah Anderson have never played a game of senior football even at Tier 2. So apparently a few of the Victorian kids were sort of trying to get a game, but they just play so much footy. They play their school footy, they play for their club, and then they play national championships. So, there's 3 different sort of training regimes going on. So there's just no room for, a VFL club like Frankston to host a top draft prospect later in the year. Whereas if they play in the Sandful and they're good enough, they get selected.
Yeah, they do. And the Sandful's a really highly rated competition. There's a couple of Sandful players we're hoping could get to the Suns, but we'll touch on them later. Right now, do you think Adelaide's going to take a bid on Tom Green?
I do. Adelaide always bids, and I don't know if they've ever landed one, but they always bid. I think it's possibly started as an innocent thing that they wanted to see how clubs like GWS would react, and every time they go in there and they say, oh yeah, we'll take that bloke, the bid always gets matched. And in this case, GWS have set it up. They get if Adelaide bids here, GWS are going to have a substantial deficit into next year. Really, it will really affect their draft next year. The further Tom Green slides, because he doesn't deserve to slide. There are a lot of experts who've got him as number 1. So GWS are really capitalising here. Adelaide have got 52 seconds left to pick. So if it is going to be coming in, it's going to be coming in right now.
Okay. We haven't had a discussion yet about Noah Anderson. So he's a I've got the stats here. He's a 191 centimetre, 87 kilo inside mid, but he's also spent a lot of his time at, I think it was the under 18 carnival, playing off the wing, and he's also very damaging down forward. His inspirations are players like Fife and Bontempelli, so he plays very much in the mould of those sort of damaging players. He can go inside, outside, and he's extremely damaging down forward. He's a good change of pace for what the Suns get. I don't think we've got any player like that, really, do we?
No, and he could be a winger because he played on the wing in the national championships. Just pausing for a moment, Adelaide have not bid on Tom Green. They have gone with Fisher Mackesy, which has actually been a pretty strong prediction. But of course, they could have bid on Tom Green and then had you pick 7 to get Mackesy anyway. So they obviously, I can't really explain it. I think it's incumbent on these teams in 3, 4, 5, 6 to bid on Green to force GWS to pay the fair price. Anyway, we can come back to Fisher Mackesy in a moment. Noah Anderson's father played 150 games of AFL. It's just that he played half of them at Hawthorn and then half of them at St Kilda. So if he had stuck around for one more season playing with the Hawks, then he'd be a father-son. So they're spewing, but their loss is our gain. He was 189 centimetres all year, and then he's listed as 191. So he's grown an inch this year, and he might not have stopped growing. So those comparisons to guys like Bontempelli and Cripps, they're not that far off the mark. He's got to put on a lot of muscle before he gets there. So I'd suggest outside mid before inside mid becomes a reality. And
I could actually see him forcing his way into the side on the half-forward flank before he gets more midfield rotations. I think if he's going to be playing regular football this year, it is going to be based from the half-forward line.
Yeah, and he can break matches open, and none of our midfielders have really got pinpoint accuracy when they're distributing into the forward line, and our forward line's young and they don't really go into the best leading patterns that there could be. So where are we going to kick enough goals is always the question of the Gold Coast Suns, and Noah Anderson is part of that solution. Smart decision making. He's going to hit the scoreboard like that. That's just a given. That's a given, and we don't have a player like him, as you say. So it's not like he's going to come into the side at the expense of Alex Sexton, which is where we get a lot of our goals from at the moment. He's going to come in and learn off Secco, but he's going to come in. It's hard to say who's going to go out of the side, but he's going to come in that role. He may even play off the bench for half a season and play in a few different roles until he finds one that he can sort of stamp as his own. But there's no point in drafting these guys 1 and 2 and sticking them in an EFL where they're not going to really benefit. If they need a change of pace, or if the pre-season training load and everything is just too much for them, then by all means, a few games in the EFL. But yeah, they're going to be ready to go day one.
Okay. As we were discussing this, like we said, Fisher Mackesy was selected by Adelaide. He's another player that I know the Suns were considering trying to move up the order to get if he was to slip back into the early teens. He's a Cale Hooker sort of player. I guess you could compare him to that. A key defender that can intercept well. And we've just had Fremantle take their first pick of 7 and 8 to picking Hayden Young. He was another player that was predicted to go top 5 and has managed to slip out to them.
Yeah, it is a little surprising that he's gone out this far. Although I will say, my newfound friend, Chris Dorr from ESPN, aka Nightmare, he correctly picked Matt Rowell at 1, Noah Anderson at 2, Luke Jackson at 3, Lockie Ash at 4, but then he said that there'd be a bid. So the bid hasn't come for Tom Green. He didn't get Sam Flanders right at Sydney, but he did get Fisher Mackesy to Adelaide and now Hayden Young to Fremantle. And he has predicted that Caleb Sarong will be Fremantle's second pick. I'm going to say that it's going to be Devon Robertson. What do you think? If Devon Robertson gets past Fremantle's pick here, we're looking at some very interesting picks coming up.
We are, and that is pretty much exactly what Cal Toomey, good friend of the show, has suggested as well. But we've only got 10 seconds left, 5. We're going to have to come back after a short break. Just stay tuned in about 10 minutes. Thanks.